Hello friends, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how you can configure your authentication authorization using Azure AD. We have seen a lot of videos in my channel which is Azure AD B2C, but this time a lot of people are asking about authentication using Azure AD itself. So this video is going to be useful for you and you can apply this in your organization when you work on your projects. Alright, so come without delay, let's get started. So friends, before we dive in, this is the GitHub link where you will find every single project that I'm demonstrating. So feel free to go through and browse whichever project you like. For this specific video, I will post the exact link of the repository in the video description itself. If you would like to follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and GitHub, these are the links that you can click and follow me. I will be more than happy to collaborate with you. So don't forget to follow me. Now let's dive into the video. Alright. To keep it simple, so our main focus of this video will be how you can set up this authentication authorization part in Azure AD, and the code change that you need is very minimal. I'm going to show you the difference. The first thing is go to my repository and take the code from expense tracker web, which is Angular 18, and then expense tracker web API, which is .NET Core 8. When you go inside this, please remember the whole source code of this project, like the working complete end-to-end application, is not here yet. However, the bare minimum code which is required for the Angular app to talk to the .NET Web API and then do this calling is there. So take this branch which is called feature Azure AD B2C. So basically if you take Azure AD B2C from this branch, from this UI code, and the Azure AD B2C or the whole code from the web API, it's going to work now. Like it's going to work, but that's going to be Azure AD B2C. But we are going to convert this into Azure AD and I'll show you the difference. It's going to be very easy. All right. Okay. So before we dive into the portal, to configure all of those things, let's first understand there are three types of authentication in Azure. One is Azure AD. The second one is Azure AD B2B. The third one is Azure AD B2C. So I'm going to explain you quickly about these three important things. Azure AD means application used within the organization, and the users who are part of that organization can be able to access those applications. That's the primary purpose of Azure AD. Okay. And then Azure AD B2B is business to business. So again, there are more than one companies who wanted to collaborate with each other. For example, so company A is hosting its application in the Azure, and anyone who's able to who's the user of that company one can still be able to access the application. But now company B user, which is also part of a different Azure, right? They have their own Azure credentials. Those user, if they wanted to work with this application, that's where Azure B2B will come, business to business collaboration. Azure AD B2C, the third one is business to consumer. We have seen this enough videos in our site. So take Amazon as one business. Customers are like us who are consumers. If they wanted to deal with the email ID and other stuff with which we can log in, that's when Azure AD B2C will come into picture. Okay. So we know B2C, enough videos. I will give you all this in the description if you want to go and take. But this is especially for a lot of my viewers and subscribers who are asking for Azure AD. How do I make this work in Azure AD, right? So for them this is the main video, right? So let's get into Azure AD and I will show you the difference and what you need to pay attention is. Okay, right. So the first thing, you need to have Azure portal login. So portal.azure.com login. Once you log in, Azure AD, the login that you make itself is Azure AD. Okay. If I have logged in with my email ID, I am a tenant for Microsoft. First, let's understand the basic things. I am a tenant of Microsoft. So my email ID is learnsmartcoding@gmail.com. Now, if I go to the search box and start searching, if I search Azure AD, it's going to show up something called Enter ID, because Azure Active Directory is nothing but Enter ID. I told you a couple of videos before, like it's been more than a year that they changed this name. All right, so that's what it is. So what we are going to do is we are going to come to the search box and type app registration. So when you say app registration, it is going to take you to a place within this, like we don't switch the directory, we don't switch to anything. This is your primary login. Okay, when you go to app registration, you will see like this. My own application, all applications, whatever it is, right? So I've already done that, I've experimented it, but let's go one by one. Let's say you're land down here. The first thing that you need to do is app registration. Now, whatever we are going to do now is close to similar, like 85 to 90% similar to what you have done in Azure AD B2C. So you're going to be feeling similar, but please pay attention from now. There are a few important things you should understand that makes a difference in how application interacts. All right. The first thing, so we have some application, like we have a expense tracker web API, expense tracker UI. UI is the client application, backend is our .NET Core application. Now, .NET Core application APIs are protected by Azure AD. Okay. Imagine this application. I own a company. Imagine I own a company and I have hosted this application and I want only my users should be able to access it. Like whoever is working as an employee in that company can access this application. Nobody else, like consumers should be able to access the application. That's the intention of this Azure AD registration. Okay, application primarily meant for that organization is what? Azure AD. Okay, you should understand the difference. Now for that, there are a couple of steps we have to follow. The first thing is we need to first register these two applications in Azure, that's under our tenant. Okay, in this case I logged in, I'm a tenant. Under my tenant, I'm going to register my application. Okay, the first application that I will register is, so let's assume expense tracker API demo. Okay, you can give a meaningful name based on, is it a dev, QA, stage, production, like whatever, depends on your company. Like, okay, so just imagine we need to have two registration for these two. We have two things, one is the web API, one is the Angular. So API, I'm going to put this name, and then imagine this is where you need to focus here. The first one says accounts in this organization directory, that's called single tenant. What does it mean? Under my organization, like under my login, if I go and search users, there'll be users. Probably I'm gonna show you that quickly. So let's go to users. You see this, there are a lot of users that you can create. Basically what will happen in a real-time application is, like in your organization is, organization might be using non-cloud earlier, or from now it's cloud. So basically anyone who's employee will be there in Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, right? They will sync up from the on-premises also. So imagine you are one of the users, like this company is, let's say this company is having 6 users. Okay, so this 6 users only should be able to access the application. If some new user comes as an employee, they will be automatically added here, like somebody will add it. So imagine that person is here. Okay, only these 6 can be able to test it or access the application. Now what here it is telling you is, if you choose the first one, which means any employee as part of that organization should be able to access the application. If I choose the second one, that's called multi-tenant, it says any enter ID. For example, if I choose this, let's say you are also having your own credential, like your own login. You are a part of a user of your own login, right? If I do this and complete my application, if you run the source code with your credential, with you as a user from your own portal, you will be able to access my application. That's what called multi-tenant. But multi-tenant is going to be a little complicated, meaning there are a lot of things needs to be taken care, giving access to the users who's outside the organization, which means I need to give proper privileges to you in order to protect my application, right? So it's not straightforward. There are more security stuff needs to be taken care, but you need to understand the difference between a single tenant and a multi-tenant. I'm going to show you a single tenant. Okay, so single tenant I'm going to choose, and there are other 2 options. Okay, we're not going to choose those options. And then here, like how we do, it's a public client, and I am I'm going to run the API locally and the UI locally. I just wanted to get the link to which it is running. Alright, I take this. So this is the port under which my API is running locally. So I'm going to set that as the redirect URL, say register. Okay, so part 1, we have registered. Now, if you want to look at the endpoints, click here. It will tell you all the different endpoints that you can access to. We don't want that for now. Okay, all what we are interested here is the client ID. You need to copy the client ID. You need to copy the tenant ID. These two are important. Okay, I'm going to show you side by side what changes you need. So if you come to this web API that you download from this GitHub, the code that is currently here is all based on the AD B2C. So I'll explain you what you need to change. Come all the way through to the environment. You need to change a couple of things. First thing is instance. For AD B2C, the instance is different. It is going to be my like karthictechworld.b2clogin.com. But for Azure AD, remember, you need to place like this: login.microsoftonline.com, and then you copy paste the client ID and tenant ID, whatever you copied from the registration. Then reminding us your two scopes, whatever the scopes, right? So that's it. This is the only change you needed from the web API. But behind the scene, we still have some more changes. Like I said, these changes are already there. That's based on Azure AD B2C. But let's come back. So what else you want? Apart from this change, the only thing that you need is this one, the authentication part. And then that's it. The remaining thing which is in the controller, like how we check and all. This one, we have to place the authorized attribute, and then we can put like this. Okay, checking the scope. Now let's reduce this. So two things you copied, right? Now we need to set up the scope. Click on API, expose an API. Why expose an API? This is the web API which is giving access to some other application, which is our UI application. So we need to add a scope here. Click on add scope. This is the generated ID. I'm going to leave it like that. If you want to change it from here like this to a different name, feel free to do. It will work. Save, continue. It is asking you to add the scope. So I'm going to say expense.read, and then I'm going to say admin and users have consent. I'll show you how the consent is looking like. I'm gonna do I'm just gonna name all of these things like this. Basically, these are the data that will look when a new user is signing up, saying that, hey, your information will be shared with this application, you want it to continue. For that, it will show some information. That is what you need to display here. Okay, add a scope, and then second one, add it. I'm going to make this as right. Provide this, and then add it. Okay, now you need to copy this, you need to copy this. Okay, remember, we need to copy these two because those are required in the UI. Okay, so far good. Now come back to our registration, click on new registration. This time I'm going to register for the Angular application. So expense tracker UI demo, that says the name. Again, it's going to be a single tenant. This time it's going to be a single page application, which means I need to take this one and then provide it here, register. So for good, same thing here. You need to copy the client ID, the tenant ID. Okay, and then we need to now get the access to the API that was exposed. So in this case, come to API permission, click on add permission, go to my organization users. Let's try our application expense tracker demo API. I'm going to choose these two, add permission, grant admin consent. You should see this green color here. Okay, so now which means our UI has access to this web API. That is what we are giving permission behind the scene. Okay, so for good, let's go to overview. Remember to copy the client ID, tenant ID, and all what you have to do is you need to go to this and copy these two, and I'll show you what you need to change it. Okay, now again I'll repeat one more time. Just be careful. Take this code, take this branch. This code has just the Azure AD B2C setup code. The reason why it has only this is so that you guys, when you copy this code to your organization or to your project, you know from an empty Angular project what is the minimum code that is required to make this application work. Because even if you miss one or two pieces of code, application will give you errors and you will be it will be difficult for you to figure out. Okay, now let's go and open up the Angular code. Okay, here you go. All what you have to do is you need to come to this environment. So what I did, I'll tell you. So I go here, I changed this name to AD configuration, and I added the tenant ID extra. Okay, so now let's go to this environment. Okay, what you want, you need to copy and paste the client ID that you have taken from the web. Copy paste the tenant ID that you have taken from the web registration. So I mean this is okay. So you copy paste the client ID from the web, you copy paste the tenant ID from the web, and you see this two things. The scope is nothing but when you come to web API, the scope that I ask you to copy, these two, if you copy paste these two, it will come here. That's it. So all what we want is client ID, tenant ID, scope. Now what other change? If I go to config, app config, okay, there is something called MSAL instance factory. If you compare this code with ADB2C, there's a slight change. What change we have? The authority is different. The authority is login.onmicrosoftonline.com followed by our tenant ID, and then known authority is different. Login.microsoftonline.com is the known authority, and remainings are all same. I'll show you the difference. Okay, so if I click here, all what I have done is I have removed the previous code, and you see this is the only change. Other than that, there is nothing change, and this is all just the configuration. So that's it. We don't have anything else. So if I run this application, I will show you what happens. You see this application is running. If I try to log in, okay, see, now it did not ask you to register or something, because in Azure AD B2C, user is able to register and then sign in. Here, users are nothing but the employees. There is nothing called registering and all. You can just sign in, okay, so that you can use SSO. Okay, I'll talk about SSO in the next video. Let's keep this video simple. So now it's asking you to log in. I can log in with this, which is my email ID, because I am the part of that organization. I'm gonna log in this. Okay, and you can see the claims, everything is here. Everything is looking here, right? Great. Now if I log out, it is asking me to log out. Now remember, if somebody else is trying to log in, like let's say you take this code and you try to log in, it won't work. Why? The email ID that you're trying to log in is not part of my organization. If you want to follow the video, or what you can do is you email me personally your email ID, okay, with your whichever is Azure. I can add it as my user, or I'll give you some user where you can try that out. I'm gonna give you a username and password that you can try that out to make this application work when you wanted to debug and see. Okay, now I'm just gonna close this. Let's open up one more time. I'm gonna log in with a different user now. Okay, so this user, right, app tester, you see this app tester, I just created a user. So if I come and create a user, I can use that user to log in. So because this user is also part of the organization, so I'm gonna give the password, sign in. All right, so this is because a new user that was created is asking me to set up the MFA, but we don't need it. And it logged in, and you can see the token is coming up and down. If I log out and log in, it will show you. You can see the token coming up. And if I copy this access token and open up jwt.ms, you can see right now the identity provider is sts.windows.net. This is different than what you have seen in Azure AD B2C. Okay, so it shows what is the name, it shows the email ID. See, this is the user email ID. It shows unique name, all of these things. See, it shows the scopes, everything. So definitely, if you follow the steps, it will work. And when you do this, all right, so when you do this, all of these things and login first time, and I'm going to show you a video now, and that is how it will prompt you to accept the consent. And this is the one that will show you that you need to follow and accept the consent. That, like, basically you're giving permission for the application to read about you. Okay, that's called user consent or admin consent. So you should just follow that. So let's recap quickly. In order to set up the Azure AD, which means your application is hosted by an organization, and the organization wants only the users in the organization to access the application. Okay, and in order to do that, you just need to have the login of the portal, and then you need to register to application or more than 2 application based on how many applications you have. For us, it's minimum UI and backend. For us, it's minimum UI and backend. So we register to application. We expose an API for the backend, and then we add it as a API permission from the UI, and then add the scope. We copy the scope, tenant ID, client ID of these 2 applications, put it into the .NET Core Web API and the Angular part. After that, the application started working. Remember, you should be a user of the organization in order to make this work. Now, there are other parts that I'll cover in a different video, which is talking about the roles, groups, or SSO. Let me know if you like this video. If you need to know those concepts, do comment in the comment section, and pass on this information to your friends so they also will get to know how to do it, and it will help in their organization or in your project, in your organization, to speed up, right? So that's when you learn more things. So thank you for watching, and if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and if you have any questions, to write in the comment section, share this with your friends, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!